Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. And I'm so excited to see people here from everywhere in the country, maybe even outside of the country. Very exciting because I think Camilla probably has fans everywhere in the world because her books are so amazing. So I'm going to get to Camilla in just a second, but I wanted to say a couple of things. Thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. And Camilla actually let us share this program with other local libraries. So I would like to thank her for inviting other libraries into our party. And so welcome to the patrons from there and from Ashland. And I hope you have a good time. You can buy signed books by Camilla from Aesop's Fable. I will put a link in the chat for that. And if you have questions, we're going to take them in the Q&A, which is a button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you want to chat with each other, feel free. That's what the chat is for. But if you have a tech issue, put that in the chat and I will pay attention to it. So Camilla wrote this really awesome book called How to Find Love. Now, how to find love when you're weird. And I just totally captured my attention because I was like, what? I love it. I love the idea of all of it. Just that there's a book out there in the world that's called that. And then Camilla, you came out with all these other amazing books, paranormal, clean, like we were talking about like romantasy, clean rom-com. And I really am so fascinated by your entire, like what's going on for you and how are you getting these amazing books out and who's reading you and everything. So we're going to ask lots and lots of questions, but right now, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is, I think, the second interview that I've done. The first one I did with my PA on Instagram, so it was a little more casual. And if there's any barking or odd noises in the background, that is because I'm dog sitting right now, and there are 5 dogs.
I hope there's still 5 at the end of this hour.
Yeah, that would be great.
We'll do a count. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start talking about the books.
Well, I started writing when I was, I think, goodness, it's been over a decade, I think. And I started writing just lyrics to songs. And then I started the trigger for actually writing like long form fiction was there were insufficient animes that focused on the like, how to explain it, the thief character who would go in and steal stuff from like bad people, and then the detective character who perceives that the thief is the bad one, and obviously they fall in love, and there were not enough of those. So the first book that I started writing was kind of a spin-off of that very niche genre, and that just kind of spiraled into Wattpad stuff, which, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. When you were younger, like a kid, were you a reader?
No.
You were not a reader.
No.
Okay. That is amazing. Like that's the first time I've ever heard that as a writer. Try to record again. Okay. So what were you talking about when I got kicked out?
I was talking about how I didn't like to read.
That's right. You said you don't like to read. And I said, oh my God, that's a new one for me. And then I got kicked out. So at what point did you ever start wanting to read, or did you really just go right into being a writer?
I really just went right into being a writer. And then of course, like as you're doing writing, if you go into writing, then everyone's all like, oh, well, if you want to be able to be a good writer, then you have to read. And so you have to read. And so I was like, okay, well, let's force ourselves to read. But no, it didn't work. But I read like nonfiction. I would front to back, I forget the phrase, cover to cover, I would read grammar books.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously you were doing something that encouraged you to read or inspired you to write. So what made you pick up the first book that you were writing in terms of like a genre or anything like that? I know that you talked about the anime that there wasn't what you wanted out there. And I love anime, so I was like, all right, I'm here for this. But so what made you think that what you wanted to read, you would be able to write?
I actually never really like, goodness, it's, how do I explain? I never really like thought, oh, I'm going to be an author. This is going to be the full-time job. I knew that I liked to write. So when I graduated from high school, I was going to take a gap year and save up a little bit for college. And during that gap year, I discovered beta reading, because if I can interact with the book, it's a little bit less like just, I don't know, it's easier for me. And so I found some authors on the Goodreads beta reading channel, and I was reading for them. And consistently they were coming back and saying, you're not just beta reading, you're like actually actively editing the books. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. What does that mean? What is that, like something that we can do? And so I looked that up, and turns out like you can become a freelance editor, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because you got people who maybe less understanding or commitment to reading grammar books out there. But yeah, I had to fix a couple of those sorts of things, but it's fine.
So, I mean, just from the chat, it looks like once you actually started writing, you just went, and I know you started out as Anne Stryker. What did or didn't work about that name for you?
Well, it was hard. I didn't have a lot of information in the marketing side of things. And so I didn't really have the right branding. It wasn't clear anywhere, really. I didn't even understand the concept of, oh, if I don't have on-page intimacy, I need to loudly proclaim that from the rafters. Otherwise, people are going to be kind of disappointed or upset. I didn't know how to locate my audience. I didn't know the elements that were even being looked for, because I'm not a reader. I couldn't be like, okay, so what do I look for in a book? It's like, no, I like stories. I love stories, but the different ways of finding stories have not always been through just reading a book.
Yeah. So then you switched, well, at that point you were writing fantasy, is that correct, as Anne Stryker?
It was fantasy romance, with more romance than fantasy, because you expect like high stakes and a lot more world building, and it was very much more of a focus on the two main characters and less on plot driven stuff, which is not the expectation. So it's even harder to get it in front of the people who are looking for that.
Right. And there are so many people out there that are writing, some well, some not so well. It's sometimes hard to find your niche as a reader as well. So then you switched over to being Camilla Evergreen and somehow hit your stride. So what happened there? I mean, the grammar, obviously,
the origin story.
Really impressed with your grammar.
The origin story of Camilla Evergreen is actually pretty funny, because I didn't even intentionally start Camilla Evergreen, really. I had just written a historical romance, and I knew enough about like trying to make a career out of being an author that I was like, oh no, I can't put this historical romance in here with my fantasy romance. What do I do? And so my best friend was like, congratulations, you're Camilla Evergreen now. And so I published the historical romance, and it did better than Anne Stryker's Lifetime.
No, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, that's interesting. So naturally, I started writing another historical romance, but then I got distracted.
Okay, I'm just having issues with my Zoom, but you guys are here, so that's the important thing. I'm just gonna keep going. So someone else, so yeah, Megan, somebody else named you, like they just came up with a name, or was it something that fit with the book you were writing? Now you froze. Wow, something is going on, right?
Wonder if there's the storms in the area. So yeah, so somebody named me. It was my best friend, and it's funny because she's also like super creative, and she does all of the fancy things like art, writing, like crafting stuff. You name it, she's probably done it, and not just done it, but like massively excelled at it. She's just a magical unicorn creature. And so because of her just wide range of all these interests and things and her comprehensive knowledge of branding, she has story ideas in all of the genres. And so Camilla Evergreen was actually her vampire planned name. And she was like, all right, here you go. So she gave me one of her names.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. The sharing of names. That's great. That's the great thing about writing, I think, in the writing community is people just share. It's not like a competition. Everybody tries to lift each other up, which is so nice. People think that you want to be a vampire.
What?
Okay. Camilla's a vampire. Okay, so I'm gonna jump into how to find love when you're weird. So not only did you change into a different genre, I mean, because that's not historical, it's contemporary.
Yeah.
But you also went really into that neurodiverse world that, a lot of people just don't understand. And so how did that happen for you?
Well, my first series where I was actually committed to, okay, we're going to do rom-com because it's a place where I have some people who can help me get the marketing out was the Could Have Been Us series. And so with that series, I was like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to make it work. We're going to write it to market. We're going to spend tons and tons of money on this company that will help us do the marketing so that we can just get the next book out because that's top tier. If you want to get it, if the best thing to do to market your first book is to get the next one out. And so I was like, all right, you focus on that. I'll focus on this. And so for that series, it was very much a let's do what works. And then because I was writing so fast, it just kind of devolved into let's do what works with the side of me and just put all of the stuff that I have in my brain into the book so that we can just keep the content coming. Let's not fight ourselves here. And so you've got the third book in that series as the main character is obsessed with Minecraft, and I watch Minecraft YouTubers every single day. And so that kind of just naturally fell into inclusion of all the stuff that's in my brain, and people really resonated with it because if you're not filtering yourself so much, then people, I don't know, I guess they feel safer, or it's easier to see past the lies of fiction, if that makes any sense. Because there's an aspect of writing where you're pretending, and if you take away some of the guise and some of the false stuff, then it becomes easier to, as Megan says, see yourself.
Mhm. Right. And it sounds like you became more vulnerable. And that also comes through in your writing is that, whether you experience the exact same thing or the exact same thoughts or not is not as relevant as the fact that you opened yourself up to, writing authentically. And yeah, definitely when I was reading your books, I was like, wow, this is some of it's like super funny. And I think, wow, what a great sense of humor. But then also I'm like, this is really deep. This is really meaningful and as people said in the chat, you can relate to it because you might have had similar thoughts with it, similar situations. So did you talk to people about things that they had experienced or stuff? Or are you really just going by your own experience of life and how your characters could experience it as you do?
I'm not exactly sure how all of the writing stuff gets in, or how the writing fodder gets in there. The only interview like I've done specifically is I interviewed a I think it's elementary school teacher, because I wanted to make sure that I was being realistic enough, because she wanted to read the book. And so I was like, oh no, I kind of have to make this at least a little bit not completely made up, maybe. So I interviewed her about like the technical stuff of how her school works, and that ended up being the information that I relied on when I put together the last book I published, which was Falling in Love with the Man of My Nightmare.
You just saw that on your Instagram. I love your covers. We will definitely talk about those in a second too. But Lisa wants to know, says that you seem very prolific. How long does it take you to write a book? And I saw somebody about you writing a book, 40 books in a month or something. What was that?
Oh, that was the 40 books that I read in November.
That's right. I say. Okay. So how long does it actually take you to write a book that ultimately gets published?
It depends on the length of the book, but I've published 18 books since it's been 2 years. Yeah.
You told me that earlier. I was like, what?
So whatever that maths to.
So in 24 months, you've written 18 books, which is almost a book a month.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to wrap my mind around that a little bit, because you didn't expect to be a writer, but yet you're writing like so prolifically as Lisa says. But when do you have an agent?
No, it's just me, my cover artist, and I have a couple of PAs who have been helping me out with things.
Mhm. Okay. So you just self-publish, you just put it out there in all the platforms that you can possibly have it on. Is that?
No, I'm not a wide author, so I'm Amazon exclusive with Kindle Unlimited right now. I'm thinking about going direct soon, because I can wrap my head around direct. It's all of the platforms is a little bit overwhelming for me, and even direct is a little bit, that's a lot, but yeah, I think maybe just direct into Amazon might be the way I'm gonna go. Because if you have the book prepared, you can have it for a period before you publish it on Amazon, and need to be Amazon exclusive to get their Kindle Unlimited program. And you can sell it for cheaper and actually make more of a cut selling it direct. So I've been looking into that and talking with some of my authors.
Yeah, I'm back. I heard all that. Um, so I guess the mechanics of it is something I don't understand is that if you are in KU, you get less of a cut than if you're doing direct with Amazon. Is that?
If I'm doing direct from my website, so if I'm personally selling the book, then I get all of the income, whereas on Amazon, you can only get 70% of unit sales, which is when you buy the ebook direct, like actually purchase it and don't just read it with their Kindle Unlimited program.
Mhm. I see. Okay, so I'd never known that. So this is really fascinating to me, because I would love to not have to buy Kindle books, because I don't necessarily want to support Amazon. But when you do direct, how do you do ebooks?
Book funnel is what I've seen that most authors are using. Is they sell direct from their website, and then they'll distribute through book funnel.
Yeah.
And apparently there's also a way book funnel is putting together where you can have audiobooks through there. but I've not looked into that so much. And the last information that I had concerning that was you could sell audiobooks through there, but it wouldn't be like a nice packaged, we'll go to a fancy app sort of thing. It would be like you get all of the chapters and it's a little less convenient for readers, but you can also sell it way cheaper because again, you're making the full cut.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't care about formatting. I like the story. I just want the words. So apparently every time I touch the chat, I disappear. So I'm not looking at the chat at all. If you see something you're interested in, feel free to comment on it. But I can do the Q&A and I see a question is there. So how do you, so with the quickness of you writing stories, how far ahead are you right now? So like you have a book out right now, one just came out. How far ahead are you in terms of writing?
Right now I'm working on a book. I'm working on editing a book that was not, well, I wrote it last year and then I was like, maybe we don't publish this one. But I'm revisiting it because yeah, maybe we do publish this one. So I have that one completely done and I'm something like a third of the way through getting it edited. And then I have something like 20,000 words on the next book in my paranormal series. Um, so I'm not like super ahead or anything. I would love to be more ahead. I had some delusions last year where I was going to have all of the books that I was going to publish throughout the year on pre-order and like uploaded and and had everything so I could just take a nap for a while. But that didn't happen.
I can't even imagine. I mean, like the most prolific writer I know of is Nora Roberts, and she puts out like 4 to 6 books a year. So you're like even ahead of that, which is just amazing. Okay, so people want your books, they want your books, they want your books, publish, publish, publish. And your books are like candy to us, like because you're putting out so many, we're just like, oh, can't wait for the next one. Um, but Joan asks a good question. I haven't read your books yet. What do you recommend to start with?
Um, how to turn your husband into your book boyfriend.
I would also
It's
recommend that.
it's a free novella, so it'll get you started on the How to Rom-Com series, which is where I intentionally was like, you know what, we're not even going to think about the marketing side of things. We're just going to be ourselves and see what happens. So yeah, that one's fun and it's actually like 100% free. Like you don't need to sign up to my newsletter because I don't like the concept of that where like, oh, you have to sign up in order to get the free book. So it's like, here's the book, read it, I'll see you at the end, and if you still like me, then come along.
Wow, that is different, and I love it. Heidi wants to know how your audiobooks are coming along.
Um, my audiobooks, I've listened through the third book. Podium picked up That's Paranormal series, and so I've got Vampire Cat, Falling in Love with My Vampire Cat, is already published and it's available on Audible and it's Audible exclusive. So it's in the points program where you can just get it. I don't know how any of that works. And then Falling in Love with My Chihuahua Shifter is coming out on the 28th. So in 8 days. I don't yet have a release day for Falling in Love with the Moth Fairy Prince. And right now we're looking into casting for the male lead point of views in the fourth book, which is Falling in Love with the Man of My Nightmares.
So your audiobooks have a dual cast, or you're looking to move towards a dual cast?
Well, at the end of the third, it's the first three do not have a dual cast. It's just the female point of view in the books, and then of course it's narrated by the female. But in the fourth, at the end of the third book, my female character mentioned something about how to be an acceptable villain, you first need to be fictional, and then you need to have chapters in your point of view so we can understand what the heck is going on, because otherwise it's just like, nope, red flag, goodbye. So since she mentioned that, I then like shift the series. The first 3 books are about like very obviously good characters who whatever. And then the last 3 are kind of the morally gray, more like villains sort of characters. And so they need to have their point of view chapters, or else it's not acceptable.
Well, apparently we all are here for that too, because I think that's, I always like, I'm not a huge fan of like first person perspective, because I like to hear what's happening in other people's heads, other
Mhm.
characters' head, especially if you're going like a male female lead. So I love that you're, turning it around a little bit. Um, so, obviously people in this, in this chat really love your books and have lots of opinions on which ones to read. But how do you come up with your titles?
You know what? Just yesterday, my friend says that my friend told me that I name my books like Fall Out Boy names their songs. Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Does Fall
Um,
Out Boy know this?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know how to. There's the for me, everything except for the interior content, which is the story itself, is marketing. So the cover is marketing. It needs to be on trend and brand and all of that stuff. The title is also marketing, and I actually republished a book that was called Unspoken into Bribed by the Billionaire Bad Boy, because tropes in the title. It's like we're talking the first week. Like this book had been out since the early days of Camilla Evergreen, where I published a historical romance. And then I was like, okay, done with that. And then I published this contemporary romance, and like over a year goes by. In the first week, it had more attention than it had made in its entire lifetime as Unspoken. So something that I try to focus on with my titles is the tropes. If you can identify what the book has in it that might draw a reader's attention, like, oh, I like grumpy bosses, or I like vampire cats, I don't know. But it's more so the grumpy bosses and the single dad neighbors and those sorts of trope highlights. And very recently with the last series, it's more like, let's name the books something where it's clear what the genre is, and it's a little bit of a question mark, so that readers, when they see it, instead of going, oh, that's this trope and I know that trope, they go, what?
Readers, we're funny. So Nancy says, are these books only in ebooks? You can't find them in libraries, which is true, because libraries are terrible at buying self-pub books. Terrible. So, but are they, can you get them print on demand by any chance?
Yeah, you can print, you can get them, I think the way that KDP distributes all of the paper books should be available at online retailers like um, Apple, and I think it's everywhere. But yeah, so the paperbacks are available. I don't have anything out in hardback because it's not a genre that people really want hardbacks in. So
Right.
yeah, but there's physical copies.
Yeah, I feel like we have, maybe I just have it on my Kindle to, How to Find Love When You're Weird on my, in the library, but I have to double check. If not, we will get it. If you're in the Minuteman system. Yes, you should definitely ask your libraries and bookstores for them, because again, libraries are terrible at buying self-pub books. It's a thing. So I'm gonna go back to your covers, because you look very happy that I'm gonna have your book in my library. I'm pretty sure
It's
I
the
already
coolest thing ever. I'm gonna have to text all of my friends.
I love it. Yeah, just send them on over to Ashland. So I will go back to your covers, because you said you stay on trend with them, which I noticed they're, kind of cartoony, you know, as a lot of things are. So like, is that where you start? Because like, again, that, you know, how to, when you're weird, how do you find love when you're weird is not super cartoony like that. Is so do you shift as trends shift?
Um, I'm not the digital artist between my friend and I. She does all of the knowing of that stuff, and I can like identify, oh, this font is kind of cursive and that one is not kind of cursive. Yep. Like I'm bad at color theory and all of that. So the only thing that I know about my covers is that the trend right now is flat color, which is like the blocking cartooniness. Um, and it's moving into not having the faceless. So my next series is going to have faces on it, which is a little bit strange.
Like real faces, like human faces, or cartoon?
It's still going to be cartoon, but it's going to have like the facial features instead of the full Slenderman look.
I have to say, you probably could put anything on your cover and we'd all read them. But but so I love your logo design. Did your designer make that? Because it reminds me of creamsicle, and I love creamsicles.
Logo design, which
The,
logo?
the one
The
with your
text one?
no, the one with your picture in it.
Oh yes, yes she did. Isn't she incredible? She's the best.
It sounds like you have a really good relationship with her.
She's my best friend.
Okay, all right. Because I was gonna say, like, when sometimes when you talk to authors, even self-published authors, they don't really know their audiobook narrators, their cover book designers, or you know, anything once they hand the book over to their editor or their publisher.
Yeah, I have a very small team because it is literally just I write the books, I edit them myself, and I send them or I format them myself, and then I send all of the information on how to make a cover to my cover artist, and so she takes care of clothing them, and then I do all of the uploading myself. Um, and then I have a PA that helps me with some graphic stuff and managing like ARC teams and that sort of thing. But it's basically the three of us. So
That's again with the amount of books that you guys get out on a regular basis, you're like a well-oiled machine or something.
yeah, they're all superheroes actually.
Sounds like you are too. Just the fact that you can edit your own books without like, you know.
It's not recommended. It's really not.
Okay, thank you for that, because I was like, I don't know anybody who does that. Do you have beta readers so that, you know, they can check? No.
No, I rely on my ARC team for catching the final typos. Thankfully, I've been lucky enough where it's not all that many. Usually, there was one book. It was just so many, and I was like, "What happened?"
Maybe you were a little tired at that time.
Something like that. I felt so bad though because I was like, "Oh no."
You do
Like
have
if that response were consistent, then I would have to figure something else out because I don't like sending unedited. I mean, there's no way I send unedited work, but unproofread. I don't like sending it just completely messy to anybody.
Mhm. So people really want to see Hayes's face on a book. Who would he look like?
So I don't actually know anybody as far as like when you say who, I can't pull up any faces of like popular actors because I don't even know what Brad Pitt looks like. Um
It's okay because you knew Fall Out Boy and Slenderman, so that's fine. That's good. You know the stuff.
I know the important stuff.
That's right. All right. I'm gonna crowdsource this. Who would you think looks like Hayes in the world? Let's see if we get it. He's hot. That's all that matters. Okay. Yep. Yep. He doesn't have a lookalike. All right. So you've written him so well that there's nobody in the universe that could possibly look like him. That's amazing. Oh, the mountain mixed with Henry Cavill. I love that.
Oh yeah, I think.
Superman,
Okay, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
Witcher.
Witcher. That's right. That's right. Yes. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that I
I
think
mean,
that would
Henry can
work.
play anybody. Seriously.
Maybe I'll send him an email and see if he wants to do a movie now.
All right. Well, given this conversation, has anybody approached you about TV shows, movies, anything for your books?
The first like big approach was the Podium actually approached me about the audiobooks, and I was like, because like you can submit to them, but I wasn't at a point where it was like, okay, we're not gonna do the whole agent query submission process right now. Um, but then they messaged me, and that was really, really cool.
That is cool. I mean, publishers are so far behind, what people actually want, but yet, it's some people, some organizations and companies are starting to catch up. So we all think that Henry Cavill should do Hayes because he's not busy right now. He's got plenty of time. He's not doing The Witcher, he's not doing Superman. Like what else is he? I mean, like a little Enola Holmes, but that's it. That's really it.
I
Um,
agree. Totally agree.
Uh, so, I mean, would you ever be interested in any of your books becoming TV shows or movies?
I mean, if that's what people want, I could probably say that um I wouldn't opt for having like a hand in it, if that makes any sense. Like I know that TV shows and movies are different from the books unless they're animes, because animes do this fantastic thing of where it's every single page is just the anime. Fantastic. Maybe I should just opt for that one.
You could make
But
some of your books in the anime. Have you seen One Piece?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
nice.
All right. Just like that. Like it's just, yes, I'm with that. Um, and so we talked about this a little bit earlier too, before I kept getting cut out, was that you write sweet romance or clean romance. What led you to that as opposed to some of the harder core romance types?
Spicy. I don't like spicy stuff. It's not very comfortable for me. And I mean, I like the focus on love, not romance. So if I can build characters that you can actually feel like there's a genuine care between them, as opposed to just the focus on the other stuff, which often like I've read a lot of spicy books because that was like where you could find the focus on the romance. But I didn't like a lot of them. Like there were some where it was like, okay, this is actually focusing on the relationship and not just the physical stuff. And it's just like I'm more interested in the emotional connections between the characters and between people and all of that, because I feel like that's the important part, and the other stuff is you can only write it so many ways and it gets boring.
Mhm.
So
Good. Well, Megan had a comment about tacos, which I won't get into right now, but I thought that was really funny. Um, she only wants spice in her tacos. Let's just say that. Uh, needs to be mentioned. Okay. Yeah, you guys, Heidi, Megan, just ring that bell. Yes, emotional connections. So, uh, it seems to me that you have really found a niche in having that sweet romances for people who really do want, not the spicy stuff, just really like, how do they fall in love? What happens there emotionally, like you said. But again, you just seem to like You just seem to like pull it out of your head. Like, how does that happen? Like, where do these ideas come from? Do you plot them out? Do you write them down? Do you outline, or do you just start writing?
Um, let's see. I was going to publish my next book next month, but then I was like, okay, let's actually see how much content needs to go in here. So let's write down all of the scenes that we've kind of been thinking that we'd like to include. And it wasn't really a plot. It was just like, oh, I'd really like the nightmare trope where she wakes up from having a nightmare and there's stuff that happens, that sort of thing, because it's forced proximity. So, but that's the most planning that I've done in 2 years.
And why? Why did you plan that one and not the others as much?
I feel like with the podium stuff for this series, there's a deadline. And so I was like trying to be like, okay, I need to make sure I'm managing my time appropriately. How much do I need to have done? When can I plan this pre-order launch? Like there's that sort of thing going on. And so I was like, okay, let's see how many words we can estimate that this is going to be. And so then I wrote all that down. I was like, this is going to be a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. And so that's why I shifted gears into the book that I wrote before, and now I'm editing it so that I can publish that one, because I still haven't figured out the marketing well enough where I can have like long periods between release. I need to get my burrito money.
Okay, so we've talked about tacos and burritos. Now we're going to talk about cinnamon rolls because Naomi wants to know, why do all of the men you write fall first? They're just big old cinnamon rolls.
I like the trope. I'm not sure how to answer that question exactly. I really like the trope where he's just absolutely the only thought in his head is just like, oh my goodness, her.
Mhm.
So yeah, I really like the instant connection without any instant love, and then where the focus is more on the woman. So like, what is she struggling with that means they can't be together? um it's, I don't know, it's a genre. I'm a woman, and it's a genre that's mainly targeted at women, and so I feel like it works pretty well to just like write the fantasy. Yes, that might be the reason.
I think that was the exact word I was going to use, was, that's the fantasy for women, is that we don't have to do anything. Somebody's
Yeah,
just
you don't
in
need
love
to
with us.
find somebody. You don't need to convince somebody. It's like it's already assured. Because I read a handful of heavy topics into some of my books, and so it's just like, I want it to be accessible. I want those conversations to be accessible, and I want them to still be safe. And so if you can walk into one of my books knowing that if you identify with the female lead, you are loved, then it's going to be safe, because then no matter what happens in the story, there's a reassurance there.
Mhm. Yeah, that you could meet somebody in your pajamas, with face cream all over your face, with one shoe on, and you've done nothing, but they're just like, whoa, that's the one for me. I mean, yeah, that is sort of the dream. But when you have spoken about, the heavy topics and things like that a little bit, but how do you dig so deeply into people's psyche without a psych degree, or the heavy research that some people do, or whatever? Like, how does that come to you?
um a lot of it is just my brain, I guess. It's I just copy and paste. Sometimes I'll be with my friends and something funny will happen and I'll just go, okay, copy and paste. And then they'll start laughing because they know what that means.
Gonna be in a book.
Yep.
That's interesting because I think it was last year or the year before I was talking to one of my favorite historical romance writers, and she also writes really deep, PTSD type stories. And I was like, how do you know this? And she was just like, I just think about what it would be like, to have that. And then I just write. So
Her empathy strikes again.
so are there any other, we have about 10 more minutes. Just want to see if anybody has any other questions before I keep going with mine. So feel free to put them in the Q&A. I will be asking those of Camilla. You've been so wonderful in answering all of my various questions. But what was the first book that you had that you felt like really was your book? Like it was what you wanted to write, the way you wanted to write it, and it hit with readers.
I can't have both.
Okay, pick one of the three.
So my first book that I wrote, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is absolutely, it was could have been romantic. That one, it felt a lot more like me than the other ones, and even in Anne Stryker. Um, First book that resonated with readers at an astonishing scale, I think, was How to Find Love When You're Weird. And I thought that was interesting from a marketing perspective because it doesn't have the cliche insight into the definite tropes that are included in the title.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that is true. I was surprised by it. There were, which is a good thing. You don't want to read the cover and be like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna read that. Naomi asked this question, which I think is really funny. What is it you love about Discount Butterflies so much that you write about them a ton in Hayes' story?
discount butterflies are, according to that person, in her incorrectness of that terminology, because actually butterflies are discount moths.
Aw. Heidi corrected it. It's fine.
Thank goodness. Thank you, Heidi. I really like that you can go outside at night and have your light on, and if you get some moth visitors, like the big ones, like the big silk moths, first of all, they're huge and they're fluffy and they're adorable, but you can also just go like put your finger up to it like a little bird, and they're just nicer than butterflies. It's just they're nicer than butterflies. Like it was like 2 a.m. and I was outside with my backlight on, and I had like, I don't know, at one point I had like 7 imperial moths, and I was able to at one point hold 4 of them at once.
Wow. So I have to disagree with you and everybody in the chat because there is a Mothman, which is super scary, but there's not a butterfly like monster.
Mothman's not scary, and I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, moving on. Allegra would like to know, what is your writing process like?
Writing
Interested.
process. Writing process, writing
Yeah.
process. This question always confuses me because I'm not exactly sure what it means. If it means I sit down and I write. I'll finish the one book and then I'll developmentally edit that book, and then I'll write the next one, and then I'll developmentally edit that one, and then go back and proofread the book before it, and then I'll publish that one, and it keeps going in this cycle.
Wow.
So,
Who's your favorite character to have written?
Valspar. Yeah, yep.
Why?
I
I don't think you're alone in that, in the reading part of it.
I hate all of my books, but that one's the best. That one's the great, and it's not for everybody, and I don't recommend it, but
I think we're all going to be reading that tonight.
How to Destroy Your Lifelong Bully. Male lead's name is Velspar, and he is just hilarious, and I don't even know how to describe that found family that is in that book is just so comforting, even though it is like really it's got some dark rom-com, or not even dark rom-com, just like dark romance themes. Please read the warnings. It's like 3 pages long. But yeah, I really like that one. And I like that character. But
Wow. Okay. Wendy wants to know Sean and Les also.
yeah, Sean and Les are also probably at the top of my favorite character list. And I don't know. Everybody was saying that I thought their story was so much worse. Like I upped how please read the warnings that book was, because I was like, oh no, this is super toxic and people need to be aware that this is fiction and blah blah blah. And everybody was like, this is so sweet. He's a pink flag at best.
I am learning some new words tonight.
Yeah, that one, Sean and Les's story is my best friend and I need therapy.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
You really hit on all of the things that people like struggle with though. Like, I mean, just from the titles itself, just things that people are like, oh, he's a bully. Like somebody, I want to kill him. You can't, you want to do it in a book so that you don't have to, right? You can see how it happens without having to actually hurt anybody and go to jail.
Yeah. I don't think you can bring all your books to jail, so.
You got a Kindle. All set. Laura asks, have you ever wished you named a character something different, or have you written a book then decided to change a name before publishing?
Wish I'd named a character something different. I don't think so. If have I changed character names? I feel like I have done that one. I can't tell you who though. And it might have even been as far back as Anne Stryker. 'Cause I don't, yeah, I don't remember.
Yes, I did just secretly reveal that I want to murder somebody. And since Zoom's not working, the recording's not gonna work, or whatever, and nobody will ever know. But your books, we have a couple more minutes, are romances. So even though there's dark parts, there's difficulties, there's bullies, whatever, there is always a happy ending for somebody.
Yes. There is always a happy ending, and given the genre and given that I want people to know that they're safe in my stories, I try to make it where the happy ending has absolutely zero stress to it. So, like, if you don't like love triangles, neither do I. If I have written a love triangle, and I can guarantee that the ending is not going to leave anyone in the triangle battered. I was in the last book that I published, the Falling in Love with the Man of My Nightmares. I was joking around that I murdered the favorite character. That's never going to happen. You don't need to worry about like anyone dying unless you want them to.
Well, apparently I do. So
and you get me a name of anyone you want me to murder. I've done that before. I literally was like, hey friend, who's someone you don't like? I need somebody.
a few people. Well, I think I'm gonna have to join your fan club, because like these are just my folks. Like they just get me. I'm really enjoying them. Thank you, Megan. So we are about out of time, but Camilla, thank you so much for all of your honest and in-depth conversation with me tonight, but also the humor and the friends and like I feel like I've found my peeps right here. So this is really wonderful. And we look forward to your next books. And if you go direct, we'll follow you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means like so much.
Well, you're welcome. And for everybody who joined us, thank you for the laughs. I appreciate you. And like I said, you can buy signed books by Camilla from Aesop's Fable. I put the link in the chat and I'll send it out as well. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening and happy reading, whatever you do. Read Camilla's books because they're amazing. And this time I'm leaving on purpose.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a good time.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I've been looking forward to this for months. So good night, everybody.
Bye.
Oop, wait a minute. I don't know how to end this.